Welcome back to another video, and this is my collective eyeshadow palette review for the month of September. Welcome back, and after a long overdue break we are going to be doing a eyeshadow palette review, and actually today we're going to be having extra lot of palettes. Usually we only have 4 to 5 palettes, but because this video format has been a bit on a break because there's been so many other review video formats that I've been doing, and also there were a couple of weekends when I wasn't able to film, so we're lagging a bit behind. So we are now putting all the eyeshadow palettes that I have tested, and some of these palettes I tested when it was still summer, so that just tells how long it has been since I've last done this video. So luckily I still have the looks, I have the swatches, and I still do, like, I was able to definitely remember what I like and what I don't. And because we have so many palettes, we are doing this in a ranking style. So I have arranged all these 8 palettes all together from the best to the, sort of worst to the best, and I'm gonna be discussing why some of these rank lower and some higher. And there were some surprises in this one. There were some palettes that I really expected to love based on the color story and what I've tried from the brand before, and then we also had some surprises because there were some palettes that I wasn't so impressed based on swatches and just seeing the palettes, and then when I actually got into using them I actually liked them quite a lot. So yeah, this was a very fun video to do in one way because we did have some surprises, which is, it's always nice when things are not so predictable. But anyway, let's start talking about the palettes, and as I said, we're gonna be starting with the worst ones first. So unfortunately, ranking on last place, and this is a brand that I've been trying out recently because it is a bit more accessible brand and I kind of wanted to now get into seeing what's good and what's not. So this is from LH Cosmetics, and this is their Reloaded palette. This is a bit of an older palette from them, which is probably the reason, one of the reasons why it's ranking so low. I'm gonna show this a bit closer because it is one of the smaller palettes. We are having quite a few smaller ones. I can already say I do have this color story, so if you got the Anastasia Beverly Hills Fall Romance palette a few years ago, you basically do have the shades of this one. There is very little difference, but I do have to say I like the ABH Fall Romance more. It has a better formula, it is more sparkly. Well, not necessarily better. I am gonna say about this one is that the mattes in these LH palettes and the later ones that we're gonna see, because we have a few more in this one, the mattes in this particular formula is quite good, and it is quite on par with what I would say with other high-end mattes. But what especially put this palette down is the shimmers. I'm gonna now show the looks and swatches of this one. So the shimmers in this one are almost like more satin-like rather than being these very shimmery, and I don't mind a more, like, I don't need all my shimmers to be special shades, but I would want them to sparkle, and unfortunately with this one they were pretty lackluster. The formula across these LH 9 pans, it seems to be that it is one of the more drier formulas. That's not necessarily bad, because I do have to give this one and the other palette that I'm going to be showing later on this video credit that they did last relatively long compared to maybe some other formulas that I have done. What is also ranking this particular palette for the last is that these palettes aren't cheap. So depending on the retailer you get this from, these go between 38 euros all the way to almost 50 euros, depending on the retailer you're buying them. I got mine on sale, and my recommendation is that this brand seems to go quite often on sale, that get these palettes on sale rather than buying the full price of these, because for example, our retailer had this like around 48 euros, and I wouldn't be paying 48 euros for this eyeshadow quality because, first of all, the cardboard packaging is okay, but it's not this sort of like heavy cardboard packaging that some high-end palettes have. You do get a mirror in this one, which, yeah, okay, but it doesn't, for me, add that much functionality that I would think about, that it validates the rather high price. And just the shadows, like, even though the matte quality is quite nice in this one, the shimmers, it doesn't warrant for me like the almost like 50 euro price tag. So this Reloaded palette is something that I'm actually going to be decluttering after I've done this review video, because while I do think you did get nice looks out of this one and you did get a decent amount of versatility with this one, it's just not a formula overall that I think is worth its price, and I do have this formula in a palette that I think offers a better formulation, and I would say even a bit more variety, because the Fall Romance palette from ABH is also bigger than this one. But from LH Cosmetics, this wouldn't be the palette that I would recommend. I do have a palette in this video later on that I would actually say that maybe look into. Spot number 7, we have the first of the Revolution Reloaded palette. So Revolution recently extended this line. They have now They brought 3 new palettes. I bought 2 of them and we're gonna see the other one later on. So this is called the Cherry Icon palette. So it is a very obviously a cherry themed color story. And initially I was quite excited about this one. I can definitely vibe with this kind of like cherry themed color story. What I will like say straight out, the cream shades, I was hoping that already they would have gotten rid of the cream shades. Unfortunately, again, we do have 2 cream shades over here. I tried to stay away from these. I did swatch these. You are gonna see them in the swatches. I can actually kind of just pop in the lookses and swatches of this one. And you can probably see from the looks, there isn't like nothing wrong with this palette, but there isn't a lot of versatility with this one. So unfortunately, and I think what is kind of like why I'm not getting that much versatility with this one is that there isn't a lot of range, because you do have like, you get 2, if we like ignore the cream shades because I don't use those, you have 2 paler shades here, but then the rest of the shades, they are kind of within the same tone, and there isn't a lot of like depth variety. Like these 2 are like bit like, yeah sure, these 2 are a bit deeper, but these also are 2 quite similar shades. Unfortunately also what is putting this down for me is the shimmers. So unlike the other palette that we will be seeing later, the shimmers in this one are very almost satin-like. Even this sort of like more shimmery topper white shade over here, even this one isn't that sparkly again compared to another palette that we're gonna be seeing in this video later. So this is again another palette that I'm just gonna be decluttering because you don't get a lot of versatility with this one, and also the fact that I did find the shimmers to be quite lacking compared to maybe some other shimmer formulas that have been in the palettes of this range. But if you are looking for a cherry themed palette at a drugstore and you don't mind that it's a pretty monotone palette, this isn't like a bad palette in terms of form. The formulas do work. The mattes actually are one of the better ones you can get at drugstore, and if you don't mind more satin-like shimmers, then this could actually be a pretty nice palette. But for me, because it lacks on the like places that I like kind of want my palettes to be in, so with maybe a bit more like amped up shimmers and maybe a bit more like having a bit more depth variety, this would have already ranked much higher. But because unfortunately it doesn't have those things, I do have to rank it lower in this sort of video. Next is a palette that I thought that I was gonna love. I thought this would be one of my favorite palettes of the year, but unfortunately I think this might be the first palette that I'm seriously considering that am I gonna declutter this maybe at the end of the year. Not after this video. I think what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put this into my like rotation a second time. But this is the Ensley Rain Light in Your Eyes palette. So this is their sort of neutral palette. It is a good thing that I got this on Monolith Shop at a sale, so I didn't pay a full price for this one. And I have been very much liking these neutral palettes with a twist, and this is when you just look at this based on the face value. This looks like a beautiful neutral palette that does kind of have fun things going on to it. In terms of formulation, it is in par with Ensley Rain's formula. The mattes are pigmented and very blendable. The shimmers are very impactful. The shimmers do crease, so if you are someone who doesn't like their eyeshadows, especially shimmers to crease, then this isn't the formula for you, but I don't mind it because I can kind of work with them even though they do crease during the daytime. I'm gonna now pop in the looks and swatches, and there isn't anything wrong with the looks that I did. I mean, the looks that I did were kind of successful, but there's just something about the combination of these colors, and I'm kind of put it to the fact that you are seeing that this side over here has this sort of greens and yellows. And maybe my mistake was that I got this one and I got the Whispering Woods one, which was their summer palette this year. And I kind of already have the greens that I like from Ensley Rain in the Whispering Woods one, and then you're kind of then left with this neutral side. I do like that we did get some plummy or purple shades in this one, but from the neutral side I was especially noticing that I was missing that you kind of are missing maybe some brown tones in between. So what would have made this perfect is actually that maybe they could have made this, I would have maybe ditched the greens altogether and I would have just added more brown tones in it, because there is kind of like the issue with me that I think some of the lighter browns in this are cool tone leaning, but then you have the more like deeper browns that are warm tone leaning, and they are kind of like, in terms of versatility, you kind of then lose it in terms of like if you just want to stick with the like neutral looks. I think if you're like someone who does a lot of like mixing together different kind of shades, then this could be still like a good neutral palette with a twist. But for me, I would just like, I think, like, yeah, I could, if they could have, like, I would have, like, gotten rid of the greenish tones in this ones and then put it more like, maybe stuck more in with the neutrals and put it like more in like different kind of neutral tones, then I think I would have liked this one more. But because I do feel that at some point it was like bit for me, this was surprisingly like maybe, I would say it was difficult palette to get like cohesive looks with, but there was just something in this one that the looks like I dipped into one shade, but then I went into kind of like another shade thinking that okay, but what is the shade that I'm gonna combine in order to make this a cohesive look, and it just kind of failed. The shimmers in this one I do think are quite nice, but I think like there are quite a few shimmers here that go like lean into green, that have this sort of green yellow effect, so maybe again with the duochrome something bit like, I rarely say this, but yeah, this should have been a more neutral palette for me, and then I would have been a bit more happier, but because they tried very hard with this one to make it more of a like a neutral palette with a twist, I think that kind of resulted in the fact that it is like maybe they missed the brief, at least for me, a bit too far. But if you have been liking this if you like this color story and for you actually like this sort of, especially if you are someone who likes neutral palettes combined with the greens and yellows, then this could be a very like good palette for you. But if you are someone who wants your neutral palette with a twist, but you don't want it to be then too far away from a basic neutral palette, then this isn't going to be for you. I don't know, did it make much sense? Did it make any sense? But for me, it's just I think shows that I, for some reason, had very difficult time with this one. And what I'm gonna do is probably that I am gonna be putting this in my rotation again to see that am I still having that much difficulties in getting cohesive looks with this one. If I do, I'm just gonna declutter it. Good thing I didn't pay full price for this one, but it was still like pricey. So Monolith Shop had this on their summer sale. It was a bit over 60 euros, so not cheap, but it was better than paying the almost, I think the normal price of this one was over 80 euros, so it was pretty pricey. But yeah, very surprising and confusing at the same time that this is ranking so long amongst all the palettes that I tried. I think from here onward I can say that I did actually like a lot of these palettes, so this was just them preferences and how versatile the palettes were. And yeah, so all of these palettes are palettes that I think are safe in my collection. I really like them. I just had to like then think what I liked more than others. So next one we're gonna be having this one. So this is the Natasha Denona, and this is the mini starlette palette. So this is one of their minis. This is I think a bit of an older mini, and this is a more of a neutral palette. So with this one there's only 2 looks because it is a smaller palette, and then you're gonna see the swatches. I like this one. It's a very basic neutral palette. I think this is what I would describe this as the best, that it's a warm leaning smoky eye palette, which is, it's something a bit different. I don't think I have exactly this kind of color story in a one cohesive palette. I of course have these kind of shades across different palettes, but within a single palette I do kind of like this. Actually, it's a pretty smart color story. The looks that you're probably seeing with this one, the other one was more of a neutral look, and then the other one was a bit more a look that I did use the more gray shades in this one. You aren't gonna get super lot of versatility in this one, but if you've been eyeing this particular mini and you like this kind of idea of a warm toned smoky look, then this is a pretty good palette. Maybe my only concern is that this one here is the deepest shade that the palette has, but I'm a bit unsure how much that builds. So if you have a deeper skin tone than I do, I'm a bit unsure, does this shade go deep enough for like multiple different kind of skin tones. For my particular very fair skin tone, it did go deep enough, but I'm a bit questioning because it's not that deep of a grayish brownish shade. I think it's a like deep cool sort of brown, I think what I would describe the shade as. But altogether a very smart color story. I think if you are just someone who is looking something quick on the go and you like this kind of a neutral palette color story, then this could be a good option to buy. And the quality very on par with the rest of the Natasha Denona palettes I do feel that this swatch underperformed very well, so you are getting a stellar Natasha Denona quality even though it's a mini. And yeah, I was pretty impressed with this one. This actually made me think that especially when I'm traveling again and maybe shopping places that have Natasha Denona, I could like maybe buy another mini that has a color story that I like, because I was quite impressed with this one. At the end of the day, it's not the most versatile thing. You will be limited because it has 5 shades, but all the 5 shades work and they do also work out together. On spot number 4, we are having a £4 special shade palette. I did have to maybe do some consideration how I'm gonna rank this, because this is a palette that I can't use this as standalone palette, so take that into consideration when you evaluate is this something you want to buy. So this is from LH Cosmetics again, and this is actually relatively new. This is the Aurora quad. They have had I think two other shimmer quads within their range, and if the shimmers in the sort of reloaded palette were not shimmering, this definitely has them shimmering. So these are what I would say topper duochromes, I think would be the best way to describe this. I think the brown shade over here, this one I think is a opaque shimmer enough, but otherwise these are more toppers rather than being full on opaque shimmers. You can build them. I'm gonna put again the looks and the swatches on the side. So with this one I either used, for the matte shades, I either used the reloaded palette or then the Bloom palette that is going to be featuring this video later. So why this is again ranking lower, first obvious reason is that I can't use this as standalone palette. I admire people who can do these very artsy all shimmer looks, but I need my mattes for a cohesive look. But I do say that especially if you are someone who wants to buy your palettes from these more like established retailers, I know LH Cosmetics is also sold in some cosmetic stores, this could actually be a good way to get some special shades into your collection, because I know a lot of people don't want to order from indie brands because they are afraid that okay, the shipping can be a bit expensive, it can take a long time, and a lot of people, they want to actually see the makeup in store before they buy it, and I can understand that, especially if you're buying something more pricey. These quads, again, their pricing differs quite a lot. At the cheapest that I have seen, these go around 35-36 euros, and the most expensive these have gone are 45 euros. I would, again, because the cardboard packaging of these isn't anything special, this again does have a mirror, but for me that doesn't, for me a mirror, I use my makeup mirror, I never use the mirror I have in my sort of palettes. So for me the mirror doesn't really add value, but there is a mirror, but the cardboard packaging again is pretty flimsy, and considering that this full price, I think this went around 45 euros. I do have to count into consideration that you can get this in store, and this is a very smooth, this is like extremely smooth duochrome formula, and a lot of people also are not into buying indie shimmers because they are pretty chunky. For example, the Ensley Rain palette previously that I showed previously in this video, chunky shimmers can crease, definitely aren't going to suit very textured lids. This is a very smooth shimmer formula that I can guarantee will suit different kind of lid type much better. It doesn't do anything funny, it doesn't crease, it doesn't pile up, it just stays put, and that I think that can warrant for me the price being a little higher, but then again I have to take into consideration that still for shades the packaging isn't the most luxurious one, so I think if these would go around, I think 35 euros would be a price point with these duochrome quads, where I would say, okay, 35 euros from a brand that I can get in store, at least in some places, then that is actually something that I would say that these are worth the price. Now we're getting into top 3, and this was a first try from this particular brand. So this is the Arttitude Cosmetics, and this is again a palette that I got from Monolith's summer sale with the Ensley Rain palette. So this was one of the Valentine's releases. I was already eyeing this during the Valentine's seasons, but because there were other palettes that I wanted to get, I decided that this was the one particular one that I decided to skip at that time. I do like the color story of this one. I think this sort of muted, grungy, romantic color story, while some of these are not usually a success for me because they can be too grungy, but this one has the perfect balance where we have some colorful tones, but then we have some of those grungy, cool tone leaning tones in it. I'm gonna show again the swatches and looks on the side. I think altogether the looks and swatches, I was pretty happy with them. Why this is on the third and not on the first spot is that these shimmers crease, and I was kind of expecting that with the more chunkier shimmers, so for example something like this in the here, but because this has some smoother shimmers, for example this kind of shade over here, I was thinking that these would be smooth also during the eyelids, and they were on initial application, but unfortunately when I tried multitude of the shimmer formulas in this one, all of them did crease, and it wasn't just like a little bit of creasing that I can usually deal with, it was quite a lot of like creasing, so that is why I have to put this down a little bit. But I will still have to say that I was pretty impressed with the quality. The mattes, especially in this one, I don't think I was expecting a bad matte quality, but just with indie brands in general, there seems to be that with a lot of them, the shimmers are usually the standout sort of formula, and then the mattes can be like okay, but with this one, the matte quality, I would say it's very comparable, for example, with Cosmic Brushes mattes, then that's like my sort of favorite indie brand in terms of matte. So these are the good pigmented, very blendable. The mattes work together, there wasn't any like patchiness issues, and I think if you've been eyeing this brand, I would recommend giving it a try. Just be aware that the shimmers, even the more smoother ones in these palettes, those can crease, so if you don't like your shimmers creasing, then maybe it isn't the brand for you. But if you can get past the fact that the shimmers do crease, or shimmers don't easily crease on your particular lid type, then I think you would actually like this a lot. And I do kind of like the color stories that they come out with. They are quite creative, and their color stories are quite, like, they can do like these sort of big different kind of color stories from other brands, which is very rare, because generally indie brands do very like more creative color stories compared to maybe some mainstream brands. But especially with this one, they seem to have, the owner has pretty good eye for color stories, and they are color stories that stand out with the indie releases. So if you are eyeing this particular palette or any of the other palettes, I would give them a try. Just be aware that the shimmers can crease, but I can't then say that does it apply to all of their palettes. So maybe if you try one or two and see that is it like problem with all of them, or maybe it was just with this one. But I would still, despite the having a bit of the creasing happening with the shimmers, I would still give this brand a try if you like the color stories, because I do think overall their quality is pretty nice. I'm pretty shocked about the 1 and 2 palettes in this video. So this palette, in my channel, I like to reward brands for the fact that they can surprise me, and this was a surprise, considering that I wasn't that excited when I swatched this one out. So this is the Celestial Icon. This was the other one of the Icon palettes. I was kind of thinking, was this duping the Makeup by Mario holiday palette we got during last year, but actually now that I've tried this out, I don't think this is duping. This is definitely, because the Makeup by Mario, while it had a pop of blue, it was clearly a cool tone neutral palette. This is actually more of a clearly, what I would say, a muted cool tone bluish palette that has a bit of like neutrals in it. I'm gonna be popping the swatches and looks, and especially I think with the swatches, when you compare it to looks, you're probably gonna go that wait, the swatches kinda look, a lot of them look pretty sheer, and that's because this has quite a few topper shades. That is something I'm not a fan of. Again, I would have wished that we could have gone out with the cream shades, and then these two toppers over here, I do have to say that we could have done without them. I would even say that this one over here, it goes quite sheer to your eyelids when you start layering it over, so maybe within these three we could have had more variation. Also, I do have to say there is quite a big of a gap here in terms of depth, so we have this sort of pale matte white shade over here, and then we jump into quite deep shades. So maybe I could have gotten rid of the three more cream shade, like the two cream shades over here, and then we could have maybe like gotten a more matte, so we could have gotten a bit more better gradient in terms of the matte shades. But even if this kind of has the sort of toppery shades, I do have to say that actually topper shades are what make this quite interesting. So you did end up getting quite more bit versatility with them. And this was one of the rare palettes where I actually did end up layering shimmer shades. It's not something that I particularly like to do with my shimmers, but it kind of did end up making the looks more interesting. So even if this swatched out kind of badly, because it has quite a few of these more sheer topper shades, I would actually maybe say that give this one a try if you're liking the color story, because I can say I got three distinctively different looks with this one, and I was pretty happy and actually quite surprised with how impactful some of them looked. And the shimmers in this one definitely more shimmering than the ones in the cherry palette, like how sparkly the shimmers were between this one and the cherry one. The difference was night and day. So with this one, if you want more sparkle, then choose this rather than the cherry one, because this has more shimmer, which is something that I also like with my palettes. And the number one palette, again, not maybe something that when I got this I would have expected that I'm gonna be ranking this number one, but I'm gonna say this had a color story advantage, so my t-shirt can be a good sign where we're going with this one. So this is the last of the three LH Cosmetics palettes I tried, so this is the Bloom palette, and I'm gonna just open this one up. So it is a it is essentially a pink palette, but it's not, luckily, it's not a monochromatic pink palette, and that is, I think, why this was maybe such a success that it was. If this would have had maybe the shimmer quality than the quad that I showed that it had, maybe then I would say that this was even like maybe this would rank even more highly when I compare this to like all the other palettes, like not the palettes in this video, but all the palettes I've tried together through whole year, then this would maybe rank even higher. But compared to maybe than other palettes that I've generally tried this year, this probably isn't still gonna make it into my top palettes of the year. But I will have to say still that I was quite pleased with the looks I came out with this one, but this does have some drawbacks. So I'm gonna pop in the looks and swatches. So while it is a pink palette, I am happy to say you can get other than pink looks, and that's what I actually like about this one. So I do think it's smart of them that they included some more like plummy shades in this one, because they kind of give you depth with this one, and they also kind of pull this away from making it more than just a pink palette. I do like the shimmers. The shimmers in this one, they aren't as sparkly as the Aurora shimmer quad shimmers are, but they are better than the ones in the Reloaded palette. I think this is much more worthy its price than the Reloaded palette. I would still not pay close to 50 euros for this one. A more appropriate price for this one would be like maybe somewhere around like 40-ish euros. Then I would say that, yeah, okay, but then I would also hope they would upgrade the packaging. I think the biggest letdown for me is also that aside from the maybe shimmer formulas in this one, is that the packaging should be a bit better compared to the price they are charging. I like the fact that also that all of these shimmers actually have something bit of an interesting, like they are duochrome shimmers. They aren't like super, what I'd say, super punchy duochromes, but they are duochrome shimmers. Maybe something that I would have liked that they would change is that within the like sort of flips that these have. So this yellow shimmer basically has a pinkish shift to it. The pink one here has a yellow shift to it. So actually when you end up layering this one and then the pink shimmer, I'm not sure how much this is shown, but when you basically end up layering these two shimmers on top of mattes, they actually tend to like end up looking the same because they have a very similar flip. I think actually my favorite shimmer ended up being this one. This is a very beautiful plumish taupish brown shimmer, which is even quite unique from shimmers that I have in my collection. Also this white shade over here, it's basically has a orangey flip to it, so again it's a different, it's a bit different than it looks in the pan. And I think the beauty of this palette is again that the shimmers, while in the pan they might look a bit unassuming, actually when you layer them over the mattes they are giving you a bit something different than what you would expect. I think this goes to the category of palette that it's a bit of a feel-good palette for me, because it kind of gives me the color story that I kind of naturally gravitate towards, so you get this sort of pinkish, mauvish kind of looks, and I am liking that the deepening up shades are these sort of more plummish, brownish shades rather than, for example, a straight out matte black, which is not something that I particularly like in my palette. So while this isn't anything revolutionary in terms of eyeshadow, I do think this is still like, overall I would say, for example, from this brand's eyeshadows altogether, that the matte quality is there. I am pretty surprised that the matte quality, it maybe isn't the most impressive matte quality when it's swatched, but this is the kind of matte quality that it just works out once you start layering it, and the mattes, they don't look muddy together, they blend in together very well. They stay put and they don't move around during the daytime, and you are just gonna get a very effortless look no matter what kind of shades you combine with this one. I do kind of like that with these 9 pans is that also the shades go together with each other, so even though you're kind of limited with the shades, there isn't anything that clashes with each other. So I'd say from all the like LH palettes that I've tried, aside from the like shimmer quad, this is something that I would get if the color story is something that speaks to you, and if you get this on sale. I'm still not convinced that these are worth their full price, but it's just like I can't be helped. I'm a big like fan of pink makeup, and this does pink in a very sophisticated way. So you do kind of, and you can see it from, because I did make one, I think there's one look that was a bit on the punchier side, so you can go the whole way of doing an all pink look with this particular palette if you want, but you do have also other options of making it a bit pink and doing something else than just plain old pink. But it is still I think this is a good pink palette for those of you who want some pink in their color, like makeup range, but you don't want it to be this sort of full-on like Colourpop style monochromatic punchy pink one, because I think the tones of these one, there are some more muted options also included in this particular palette. Those were all the palettes I had for this video. This is probably going to be a very long one because we have so many, but luckily now that I got a big bunch of these out of the way, we can now move to the more like manageable videos with the 4 or 5 palettes that we usually have. Comment down below what have been your sort of favorite palettes that you've been trying out lately, and if you have tried any of these palettes that I have in my video, then tell me how did you like about them, because I'm always very curious to hear how people feel about the palettes that I tried, and were they like, did you like something better than I did, or did you have maybe similar opinions that I had from these palettes? If you like this video, push the like button, subscribe to the channel, or ring the bell button if you want to get notifications for future content. You can also find me with the same nickname, Makeup Hedgehog, on Instagram. I hope I can see you in the video. Bye bye!